President Trump will address the joint sitting flanked by a Republican majority in both houses, a Republican speaker and vice president, and a legion of MAGA supporters who will likely view the moment as part of a conquering return of their president to the center of American political power.
His tone, I think, is going to be triumphal. His tone is going to be, one might even say, imperial. President Trump has been saying consistently that he won a landslide election and a mandate from the American people. And the truth of the matter is, historically speaking, it actually was a very, very close election. And more people in the country did not vote for the president than voted for him, more registered voters.
Amid sweeping changes to the federal bureaucracy, often through executive fiat, that seeks to reshape the government, its workforce, its functions, in addition to its place on the world stage.
There's almost no comparison whatsoever with the pace of change, and more importantly, I think the tone of change. We expect different administrations to come in and make changes. That's why they have a transition. That's why they have a transfer of power. But what's really been different about this administration is the lack of thought. And I mean that specifically, the lack of thought that's going into a lot of these decisions, because typically for the federal government, it takes weeks, months, years to make a decision about what to do with this $1 billion or that $1 billion. President Trump and the Doge team in particular seem to be willing to do those things on the spur of the moment.
A blitz of executive orders, from imposing trade tariffs on allies and foes, declaring an emergency at the southern border as deportations of undocumented immigrants gather steam, pauses to foreign aid that has imperiled humanitarian efforts globally, while withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Change Agreement and the UN Human Rights Council, among a host of actions in just his first 6 weeks, all likely to be framed as victories for the United States.
It certainly has been consequential. He talked during his first term about draining the swamp. He was unsuccessful in doing that in his first term, and he is certainly doubling down and appears to be determined to do that now. I expect that he will be respectful but pointed. He was actually, I thought, fairly measured in all of the other State of the Union addresses that he gave during his first term. But I think he's going to focus on the themes that he has been displaying at an incredibly rapid rate.
And with a president who feels he and his party has the wind at their backs, the question arises as to the role of the opposition amid Tuesday night's pomp, ceremony and circumstance.
I think they can be quiet. They can sit on their hands. It's possible that some may walk out, as long as they do it responsibly without shouting and yelling or trying to interrupt the president. I think that's perfectly okay as well. What is not okay, and what will actually help Trump, which is the opposite of what they want to do, is if they start shouting epithets and interrupting Trump, which will, of course, enrage the Republicans, and there's slightly more of them in the chamber, as well as probably more Republican staffers who are going to be stuffed into the chamber as well. That will backfire on them. Now, this is going to be a test of their discipline. And I don't want to be too critical of the Democrats because they're in a terrible position, but they haven't shown a whole lot of discipline since the election. They've done a very, very poor job of being an opposition party, and they know it.
As countries around the world, in Europe, Africa, Asia and the Americas, watch closely for any incoming policy shifts that haven't as yet been publicly choreographed. President Trump likes a spectacle, particularly one made for live television, and Tuesday night's address will be no different. Republican majorities in the House will provide an adoring and applauding backdrop to his words, while the posture of opposition Democrats will also be watched closely. For a global audience, what might Trump say next about the Russia-Ukraine war, the future of Gaza, and about international relationships, be that through trade or otherwise, in the context of his America First ideology. But what is certain is that this will be a political moment filled with political drama that only the Donald Trump show can produce. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.